I want to tell you a story. It's about a time in my life when I found myself sitting in a quiet coffee shop, thinking back over the years. I was in my 70s then, and I remember sipping my coffee, feeling that familiar mix of gratitude and wonder that comes with age. I'd lived a good life, I thought. I'd seen my kids grow up, worked through a career, lost some dear friends, and gathered a trove of memories that I carry with me, like old photographs in a worn leather album. Yet, even with all that, I was facing something unexpected. It started innocently enough. One day I met a young woman, let's call her Emily. She was bright, full of life, and brought an energy into my world that I hadn't felt in some time. Emily was easy to talk to, and we'd often end up talking for hours. We'd share stories, hers about dreams she was chasing, and mine about the many roads I had walked. There was laughter, sometimes even a little flirtation, but always a genuine connection. For the first time in years, I started wondering, should I take this leap and explore a relationship with someone much younger? The thought alone felt bold. I could already imagine the reactions. Friends with their eyebrows raised, my children with their concerned smiles, and maybe even my own voice whispering, "Is this the right thing?" So I sat with that question, thinking it through as carefully as I could. Was it companionship I was after? Perhaps a chance to feel young again? Or was it something deeper? Something about finding a person who truly saw me for who I am now, not who I once was. This question opened up so many layers. It wasn't just about dating or companionship. It was about where I was in life, my hopes, my needs, and how we older folks see ourselves in this ever-changing world. And that's why I'm here, sharing this story with you. Because I know I'm not the only one who's found themselves wondering about dating again. Maybe even with someone younger. It's not as simple as just saying yes or no. It's a journey of understanding our own hearts, our needs, and even our fears. Let's start with this first question that came to mind for me. Why would I even consider dating a younger woman? As I sat with this question in that coffee shop, I realized there were many layers to why the idea appealed to me. It wasn't just about wanting companionship or feeling lonely, though those played a part. Dating a younger woman felt like it had the potential to bring something different into my life, something that might add a spark I hadn't felt in a while. Let me explain a bit more. One of the things I noticed about Emily was her unbridled curiosity. She was always talking about new ideas she wanted to explore, things she hadn't done yet, and places she hoped to visit. Her enthusiasm was contagious. I'd find myself getting excited just listening to her. It made me remember a time in my own life when everything seemed possible, and each day brought something new. As we age, it's easy to get set in our ways. We know our routines, and we've learned what works for us. That's not a bad thing. It brings comfort and stability. But there's something about the energy of youth that can reignite that spark inside of us. It reminded me that even at 75, there's still more to discover. Emily's outlook was like fresh air, something that made me want to get out there and experience new things myself. With Emily, there was a certain freedom. She wasn't looking for someone to marry or to build a life with in the traditional sense. She was just enjoying getting to know me as a person. It took away the pressures that sometimes come with relationships. We didn't have to worry about planning a future together. We could simply enjoy each other's company, day by day, without needing to have a roadmap. For many older folks, this idea of companionship without long-term commitments is actually quite appealing. We've done the hard work of building families, navigating careers, and saving for the future. A younger partner might not be in a hurry to settle into those commitments. That can be refreshing, allowing us to experience companionship without feeling like it has to fit into a certain mold. I'll be honest, as an older man, I sometimes felt invisible. After a certain age, people tend to see you through a narrow lens, often overlooking the person you are on the inside. Younger folks might see the gray hair and the slower pace, but they don't always see the person who lived, loved, and experienced life to its fullest. With Emily, though, I felt truly seen. She appreciated my stories, laughed at my jokes, and treated me as someone with value and wisdom. It's easy to feel overlooked as we get older, but Emily saw beyond the wrinkles and saw the man I am. It was a simple thing, really, but it felt deeply meaningful. Being with her was a reminder that age doesn't take away our worth. It simply adds another layer to it. These were the things that drew me to the idea of dating someone younger. It was a combination of curiosity, companionship, and feeling truly valued. Now, does that mean it was without challenges? Not at all. As I spent more time with Emily, I realized that while there was a lot to enjoy, there were also real hurdles to consider. After spending time with Emily, I realized it wasn't all smooth sailing. In fact, several practical and emotional challenges kept surfacing, and they needed careful thought. The excitement and companionship were wonderful, but dating someone from a different generation has its own set of difficulties. One of the first things that came up was the reaction of people around me. I remember mentioning Emily to a friend, and his raised eyebrows said it all. The reaction wasn't exactly negative, but it was clear that he was skeptical. Friends, family members, and even strangers sometimes have preconceived notions about relationships with big age differences. And if I'm being honest, that judgment felt uncomfortable. When we're in our 70s, we've lived long enough to know that people's opinions can't define us. Yet knowing that, I still found myself wondering if I'd be judged, especially by my children. I wondered if they'd understand, or if they'd worry that Emily was with me for the wrong reasons. These kinds of thoughts are heavy, and they can make you hesitate. I remember another older friend of mine, Richard, who had gone through a similar experience. He'd started dating a younger woman, but eventually ended it because he felt overwhelmed by his family's disapproval. It's a personal decision, but the weight of family expectations and societal norms can be powerful. This was a challenge I knew I'd have to address within myself. Another challenge was the difference in lifestyle. Being older, I'm used to a certain pace. I enjoy quiet evenings, slow mornings, and sticking to a routine that keeps me comfortable. Emily, however, had a very different rhythm. She liked going out, meeting new people, and exploring new places. While that energy was part of what drew me to her, it also felt exhausting at times. Dating someone younger can mean trying to keep up with a lifestyle that doesn't always match your own. I often found myself wondering if I was holding her back. She deserved someone who could keep up with her. Someone who would say yes to all the adventures without feeling drained. This made me question whether I was being fair to her as well. I remember a time when we had plans to go to a concert she was excited about. The night of the concert, I was tired and feeling sore from a long walk earlier that day. I had to cancel, and I could see her disappointment. It was a small thing, but it reminded me that we had different needs and paces. It was one of the moments that made me wonder if a relationship like ours could truly work. The future is something we all think about, especially as we get older. Being with Emily was wonderful in many ways, but I couldn't shake the thought of what our relationship might look like in 10 or 20 years. The reality of age is something we have to face, and in a relationship with a younger woman, that reality becomes very clear. In a way, I worried about becoming a burden. I didn't want Emily to feel obligated to take care of me as I aged. While she reassured me that she cared about me deeply, I couldn't ignore the fact that my health might decline before hers. It felt unfair to bring that into her life, especially when she had so much ahead of her. My friend George, another older gentleman, had been married to a younger woman for many years. He told me that as time went on, the age gap became more challenging. He began to worry about her future without him, as he knew he would likely pass on before her. It's a difficult thought, but it's one we have to confront if we're considering a relationship with a younger person. Life experience can be both a bridge and a barrier. On one hand, I loved sharing stories with Emily and hearing about her experiences. But on the other hand, there were moments when I felt a distance between us. She was still in the process of building her life, her career, her dreams, her social circles. I, on the other hand, had gone through those phases. I was more interested in reflecting on life than in pursuing new achievements. There were times when I wanted to talk about things like retirement, health, and even the memories of people I'd lost. While Emily was always a good listener, I could sense that she didn't fully relate. It's natural. We all have our own timelines. But it made me question whether we were in different worlds, so to speak. It's not a fault of hers or mine. It's just the reality of an age gap. These were some of the main challenges I encountered, and they led me to some deeper reflections. Dating a younger woman brings joys and connection, but it also brings hurdles that require honest self-reflection. As I spent more time with Emily, I realized that I needed to address the concerns I had. The challenges weren't going to disappear on their own, so I had to face them head-on. It wasn't easy, but I started asking myself deeper questions to help me navigate through the complexities of this relationship. The first question I had to ask myself was whether my relationship with Emily was rooted in a genuine connection, or whether it was just about me seeking companionship to fill a gap in my life. It's easy to confuse companionship with love, especially when loneliness creeps in. But I had to be honest with myself. Was I really in love with her, or was I just enjoying the attention and the novelty of being with someone so full of life? I remembered a conversation I had with another older man, Tom, who had also been dating someone younger. He told me that in the beginning, he felt a rush of excitement, but as time passed, he realized that what really mattered wasn't the age difference, but the depth of their connection. Tom said that once he realized how much he genuinely enjoyed being around his partner, not just because she was younger, but because they had a real bond, that's when the relationship felt like it could go somewhere. For me, the turning point came when I began to appreciate Emily for who she was, not just the way she made me feel. We had common values, and we shared laughter and deep conversation. I knew it wasn't just about her youth or my age. It was about the person she was and the way she made me see life through a new lens. We were both drawn to each other because we truly enjoyed each other's company. Another difficult question I had to ask was whether I was emotionally prepared for the potential challenges of dating someone younger. There's no denying that the age gap can create emotional strain over time. I needed to ask myself if I was ready for the possibility that this might not work out, or if I was holding on to a dream of a relationship that wasn't realistic in the long run. I talked to Richard again, the older friend I mentioned earlier, who had ended his relationship with a younger woman. He told me that while he had enjoyed his time with her, he realized that emotionally they were on different paths. Richard said he eventually came to terms with the fact that the age difference made it harder for them to align in terms of long-term goals. It was painful for him, but it was also a valuable lesson in understanding when it's time to let go. For me, facing this reality was difficult. I knew that dating a younger woman meant that I had to accept the fact that as we aged, I would face health challenges she might not fully understand. I also had to acknowledge that she might want different things from life, and that those differences could grow wider as the years went by. But despite these concerns, I found myself accepting the possibility of emotional pain. I realized that being open to love in any form always involves some risk. The key was being realistic about what I could offer and what I could expect in return. It was about living in the moment and not letting fear of the future prevent me from enjoying the connection I had. As much as I enjoyed spending time with Emily, I had to consider what I wanted in the long term. Did I want to continue seeing her casually, or was I hoping for something more serious? This was one of the most important questions for me. At my age, I was no longer interested in casual relationships. I wanted something meaningful, but I had to be realistic about whether we could build that together, given our different stages in life. It was clear that Emily wasn't looking for the same kind of long-term commitment I was accustomed to. She was still figuring out her own path, and she was focused on her career and personal growth. I respected that, but I had to ask myself whether I was ready for the uncertainty of not knowing what the future held. Could I accept that the relationship might change or eventually end? And would I be okay with that? My friend George, who I mentioned earlier, shared his wisdom on this matter. He and his younger wife had talked openly about their different expectations. He told me that what had worked for them was honest communication. They set realistic expectations and never tried to pretend they were on the same timeline. They made room for both their needs, his for stability and hers for exploration. And it had worked well for them. George emphasized the importance of staying true to what you both wanted out of the relationship, even if that meant adjusting along the way. As I thought about it, I realized I needed to have the same kind of conversation with Emily. We hadn't discussed our long-term goals in depth yet, and that was something I needed to address before moving forward. Finally, I had to ask myself if I was willing to be open about my fears and insecurities with Emily. There's a certain vulnerability that comes with sharing your deepest concerns with someone, especially when there's a significant age gap. I didn't want her to think I was just an old man afraid of growing older, but I also needed her to understand where I was coming from. Opening up about these fears wasn't easy. I feared that talking about aging, health problems, or the possibility of losing her would make me seem weak. But as I spent more time with Emily, I realized that the best relationships are built on honesty. If I truly valued her, I needed to share these parts of myself with her, even if it was uncomfortable. One evening, we sat down and I shared my worries with her. I told her about my fears of getting older and what it might mean for our relationship. Emily listened without judgment, and we talked openly about the future. To my surprise, she wasn't put off by my concerns. In fact, she appreciated my honesty and said that she didn't see me as an old man, but as someone who had lived a full life and was still enjoying it. That conversation was a turning point for us. It reminded me that the strength of a relationship doesn't lie in avoiding difficult conversations, but in having them with love and respect. Navigating these challenges was not easy, but it was also incredibly rewarding. Each conversation, each moment of doubt, pushed me to understand more about myself, about Emily, and about what I truly wanted in this chapter of my life. As I sat with all the questions, concerns, and reflections that had surfaced over the months of spending time with Emily, I came to a place where I had to ask myself, was it worth continuing this relationship? This wasn't just about enjoying the company of a younger woman or seeking a fleeting moment of excitement. It was about my deeper needs, and whether we were both in a space where we could continue growing together. One of the most important realizations I came to was that, at the end of the day, relationships are about connection. Age is a number, but the connection we share with another person is what truly matters. I had initially been so focused on the difference in our ages, the societal judgment, and the emotional uncertainties that I lost sight of the fact that what Emily and I shared was real and meaningful. The conversations, the shared moments of joy, and even the quiet time spent together mattered far more than the age gap between us. It wasn't about us being perfect for each other in every way. It was about how we made each other feel. Emily reminded me that love and companionship aren't bound by years. They are bound by mutual respect, laughter, and the understanding that we both want something meaningful from life. In talking to other older friends who had dated younger women, I realized that this was a common theme. One friend, Bob, who was in his late 70s, told me he had dated women in their 40s and 50s over the years. He said that in every relationship, age eventually became less significant. What truly mattered, he said, was the connection they had built. Over time, Bob had learned to focus on the things that truly bonded him to his partner: shared values, experiences, and the joy of spending time together. Another thing that became clear to me was the importance of being honest about our needs. Emily and I had to acknowledge that we were at different points in our lives. She was still in a phase of exploration, building her career and figuring out what she wanted for the future. I, on the other hand, was more focused on reflecting on my life and making the most of the years I had left. We had to be honest about what we wanted from the relationship. While I valued companionship and stability, I didn't expect Emily to give up her dreams or slow down to meet me where I was. That wouldn't have been fair to her. I had to ask myself if I could truly be content with a relationship where we might want different things in the future. Could I be okay with the fact that, while we shared a lot, we were also on different paths? Emily, to her credit, had already been open about her hopes and dreams, and I respected that. She wasn't asking me to change, and she wasn't looking for anything from me that I couldn't offer. And in return, I made it clear what I needed. It wasn't about changing each other. It was about allowing each other to continue growing, while still being there for one another. One of the hardest parts about deciding whether to continue with Emily was the fear of letting go of the idea of having someone so much younger in my life. It was thrilling in some ways. It gave me a sense of vitality and excitement that I hadn't felt in years. I wanted to keep that energy, that connection, because it made me feel alive. But at the same time, I had to ask myself if I was holding on to something simply because it made me feel good in the moment, rather than out of a true, long-term connection. My friend Tom, who had gone through something similar, gave me some perspective. He said that sometimes we hold on to relationships because they meet a need in the short term, but that doesn't mean they're the right fit for the long term. He shared with me that his younger partner had been a great source of joy in the moment, but eventually they realized that their goals had simply diverged too much. Letting go, though painful, had opened the door for them both to move forward in ways that were more in line with their individual lives. That conversation stayed with me. I realized that if I was to continue seeing Emily, I needed to be prepared for the possibility that our paths might eventually diverge. That was part of life. Relationships don't always last forever, but that doesn't mean they're any less valuable for the time they exist. In the end, what helped me decide to continue was the realization that embracing change was essential to living fully, regardless of age. Change isn't easy, especially as we grow older. We can become set in our ways, reluctant to open ourselves to new experiences or relationships. But I had to remind myself that life is always changing, and that's not something to fear. It's something to embrace. I thought about my own father, who had married someone much younger when he was in his 70s. His relationship lasted for many years, and it brought him happiness in ways I hadn't expected. Yes, there were challenges along the way, but they faced them together, with love and understanding. My father showed me that it's never too late to take chances, to love again, and to grow in unexpected ways. Ultimately, I realized that continuing with Emily was about being open to change, to love, and to the possibilities that the future could still hold, even at my age. It was about enjoying the journey, no matter how long or short it might be. Looking back, what I learned from my time with Emily wasn't just about the relationship itself. It was about understanding that life is full of unexpected twists, and that love doesn't have an age limit. The experience helped me realize that we all have something to offer, no matter where we are in life. It's not about seeking perfection. It's about sharing moments, being present, and accepting each other for who we are. I also learned that it's okay to face uncertainty, to question our choices, and to admit that sometimes we don't have all the answers. Life doesn't come with a guarantee, but it's in taking chances and being open to new experiences that we find the richness of it. As I continue through this chapter of my life, I carry these lessons with me. Whether it's with Emily or someone else, I've learned that the journey itself is worth it. And if there's one thing I know, it's this. As long as we're alive, there's always room for love, growth, and new beginnings. As I reflect on everything I've shared, my doubts, my fears, my discoveries, I realize that the most important lesson I've learned isn't about the age difference or the relationship itself. It's about how we choose to live, how we choose to embrace the experiences and the people that come into our lives, regardless of age. There's a deep wisdom that comes with growing older. We've lived through more years, seen the highs and lows of life, and learned that time is precious. But there's also something beautiful about how love, no matter its form or timing, can still find its way into our lives when we least expect it. It's a reminder that no matter how old we are still capable of growth, of deep connection, and of making meaningful choices. When Emily and I began our journey, I wasn't sure where it would take us. The uncertainty was daunting, and at times I wondered if I was making the right choice. But as I sit here now, looking back on those moments of laughter, tenderness, and even the hard conversations, I realized that it was all worth it. The relationship itself wasn't perfect, and we certainly faced challenges along the way. But those challenges were part of what made it real. It was in the imperfection that we found something beautiful. A genuine connection, an honest companionship, and a shared journey through the later years of life. So, if you're in your 70s, your 80s, or even beyond, I want you to remember one thing. Age is just a number, and love has no expiration date. It doesn't matter if the person sitting across from you is older or younger. What matters is the bond you share, the respect you give each other, and the willingness to be open to what life still has to offer. There's no guarantee that relationships will last forever, and sometimes we have to let go of things. But the love we share in the present, whether it's a love for a partner, a family member, or even a new friendship, is something to be cherished, something to be celebrated. Because the truth is, love doesn't fade with age. It grows deeper, richer, and more meaningful when we give it the space to flourish. I've learned that it's never too late to take a chance on love, to open your heart, and to embrace the changes that come with it. Even in the later years of life, there is still room for adventure, for joy, and for the beautiful uncertainty that comes with being truly alive. So whether you're dating a younger woman or simply embracing the life you have, remember this: the heart never grows old. And in the end, it's not about how many years you have left. It's about how you choose to fill those years with love, connection, and meaning. That's the real gift. I hope that in telling my story, I've inspired you to reflect on your own journey. No matter your age, the possibilities for love and fulfillment are endless. It's not about age, it's about what you bring to the table and what you allow yourself to receive. Keep your heart open, and the world will always have something beautiful to offer.